Qin Fan awakened as a D-rank mage in a world of combat classes. His basic fireball was slow, expensive, and nearly useless. Then a hidden god-tier talent called Truth Furnace appeared. It could fuse items, materials, or skills into abilities he owned. Cheap chemicals transformed his fireball into sticky flames burning for minutes. Boss drops later added control, mana recovery, movement, and stronger combinations. Every useful object could become another evolution if Qin Fan understood its property. His D-rank label stayed, but his combat system had no clear ceiling. The awakening took place inside an ordinary high school classroom, making the gap between teenage expectations and permanent career consequences feel immediate. Qin Fan had expected reincarnation itself to grant some protagonist advantage, so the gray D-rank result felt like the universe correcting his optimism. The class system was already woven into education, employment, military recruitment, and dungeon access, making a weak awakening more than a bad test score. Only minutes earlier, he had stood in front of the awakening crystal, expecting the kind of power every student dreamed about. This world treated awakening as the dividing line between ordinary life and a career inside dangerous monster realms. Warriors, archers, assassins, healers, and mages could all build futures around their newly revealed classes. Qin Fan had reincarnated into this world, so he understood the rules well enough to know rank mattered immediately. The crystal answered with a dull gray glow and identified him as a officially weak D-rank mage. That result sounded survivable until he remembered how expensive mage progression actually was. Even a basic offensive skill book could cost more money than he had ever held at once. Mana potions also drained cash every time a mage wanted to keep fighting after a few spells. Warriors could keep swinging steel, while archers needed cheap ammunition instead of constant magical recovery. Qin Fan's first beginner fireball had miserable damage, a long charge time, and almost no room for error. His starting magic attack was so low that a same-level melee fighter could accomplish more before he finished chanting. For a teenager with almost no savings, the class felt less like a blessing than a lifelong subscription bill. A basic beginner fireball cost real money twice. First through the skill book, then through every potion needed to replace the mana spent using it. Qin Fan's starting beginner fireball required enough charging time for a melee class to close distance before the projectile ever became useful. His low magic attack meant even a successful hit produced damage closer to harassment than a reliable monster finishing attack. Because his parents were gone, there was no family fortune waiting to rescue him from the financial side of mage progression. The classroom still reacted strangely because the body Qin Fan inherited was exceptionally handsome. Several girls rushed over with water, tissues, encouragement, and offers to help him through early dungeons. One even promised that an older A-rank relative could carry him until his class improved. Another offered her own ranged support, as if his face alone justified the investment. The male students reacted with open resentment because stronger awakenings were suddenly receiving less attention than the D-rank pretty boy. An assassin who had expected admiration looked especially furious, while the crowd ignored his dramatic new class. Qin Fan escaped the attention and returned to his seat, already considering much less heroic ways to survive adulthood. Becoming a decorative husband for a wealthy woman briefly sounded more realistic than funding a mage career himself. The girls crowding around him were not pretending his rank was strong. They simply believed his appearance made him worth helping. Anyway, that attention made the stronger boys angrier, because Awakening Day was supposed to reward combat talent, not whoever inherited the best face. Qin Fan escaped the mob partly from embarrassment, and partly because every offer reminded him how dependent a normal officially weak D-rank mage could become. The next awakening crystal erased that joke when brilliant golden light erupted across the classroom. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan stepped away from the crystal as an S-rank Radiant Holy Paladin. Her class could tank damage, heal allies, and fight directly, giving her one of the strongest possible starting packages. Her family also can level 5 Forest Trolled. Powerful Moon Ring Corporation, making her both extraordinarily wealthy and exceptionally talented. Every student expected the room to revolve around her after an awakening that powerful. Instead, S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan walked past the crowd and stopped directly at Qin Fan's desk. She asked him to join her team without offering the stronger students even a glance. A C-rank warrior tried to interrupt and advertise himself, but S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan dismissed him before he finished. Then she listed what joining her side could provide: skill books, potions, equipment, class resources, and the financial support of powerful Moon Ring Corporation were all available. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan's Golden Awakening was powerful enough to damage the classroom ceiling, leaving no doubt that her S-rank result belonged in another category. Radiant Holy Paladin combined the roles. Most teams normally needed several members to cover, giving her enormous solo potential from the first day. Powerful Moon Ring Corporation's resources meant her class would receive premium equipment immediately instead of waiting for dungeon drops or cheap starter gear. For a broke, officially weak D-rank mage, the offer was almost impossibly generous. The classroom immediately accused Qin Fan of being recruited for his appearance rather than his combat potential. His pride resisted the idea of becoming a decorative dependent, even while the numbers attacked that pride from every direction. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan mentioned mage equipment, worth tens of millions, and an instant cast ring worth far more. Qin Fan's objections weakened rapidly because he knew exactly how impossible those resources were to purchase alone. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan calmly asked how many billions his pride was worth. He was one breath away from accepting, when a previously unreadable section of his status panel changed. The garbled talent entry cleared and revealed God-tier Truth Furnace. Its description stated that Qin Fan could fuse compatible items, materials, and abilities into his existing skills. The resulting skill would inherit new properties, rather than merely gaining a small stat increase. That single rule changed the value of every cheap object around him. A worthless material could become useful if its physical property translated into a magical effect. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan's recruitment offer included not only consumables but access to hidden class resources that ordinary students might never see during early progression. Qin Fan nearly accepted because her family could remove every financial weakness built into the mage class before his first serious dungeon. His refusal only became possible after God-tier Truth Furnace turned future growth from a money problem into an experimentation problem. A weak skill could become the foundation for something entirely different instead of remaining permanently weak. Qin Fan immediately rejected S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan's offer, surprising everyone who had watched him nearly surrender. He told her not to measure his future by his current rank, and left before the classroom could recover. The confident exit hit a much less glamorous problem. His total savings were only a few thousand yuan, nowhere near enough for serious mage equipment. Outside the school, discarded rubber, foam, and other trash gave him a cheaper idea. Knowledge from his previous life included the basic behavior of sticky incendiary mixtures. He bought soap, sugar, fuel, rubber pieces, and inexpensive materials instead of a proper spellbook. The purchase looked absurd to anyone who expected a mage to shop for crystals and enchanted gear. Qin Fan carried everything into a secluded place and prepared the mixture carefully. God-tier Truth Furnace reacted when he selected his basic beginner fireball as the target skill. The talent consumed the physical materials and converted their useful properties into the magical structure. Mental pressure slammed into Qin Fan as the fusion proceeded, proving the talent had a real cost. God-tier Truth Furnace did not promise random free power. It required Qin Fan to understand what property he wanted and provide something capable of carrying it. That limitation made his previous life knowledge immediately relevant, because common modern materials could possess useful behaviors this magical world ignored. The talent also had a cooldown and mental cost, preventing Qin Fan from endlessly fusing every object he saw without planning. When the pain passed, the original beginner fireball had disappeared from his skill list. A new ability called Sticky Gel Firebomb had replaced it. The spell still launched a burning projectile, but impact now spread sticky fire across the target and nearby surfaces. The burning material clung instead of disappearing after one hit. Its damage continued every second for several minutes, turning time into Qin Fan's strongest weapon. A monster that survived the first impact would keep taking damage long after Qin Fan stopped casting. The problem was mana consumption. Sticky Gel Firebomb cost so much that his beginner pool could support only a couple of casts before emptying. God-tier Truth Furnace had solved damage, but it had not solved the economy of being a mage. Qin Fan spent nearly all his remaining money on basic expensive mana potions. The ingredients for the first fusion were intentionally cheap, because Qin Fan could not afford to waste enchanted items while learning how the talent behaved. Sticky fuel, rubber, foam, soap, and sugar were valuable to him for physical properties rather than rarity or magical grade. The resulting sticky gel firebomb proved God-tier truth furnace could translate mundane chemistry into a spell rule that local mage theory never expected. The shopkeeper thought the purchase was reckless and offered him ordinary work instead. Chinfan declined because his new skill finally gave him a realistic way to earn experience and drops. He warned the confused shopkeeper to keep fire extinguishers nearby, then returned to school for the beginner public rookie trial. Thousands of newly awakened students gathered around the portal, leading to beginner dungeon goblin forests. Most immediately formed teams around healers, tanks, and higher-ranked damage classes. D-rank students were openly rejected because stronger groups saw them as extra risk. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan entered alone, confident that an S-rank Paladin did not need beginner teammates. A-rank Assassin Liam Mo, an A-rank assassin determined to look equally impressive, followed her into the portal without a party. Chin Fan stepped forward next and walked toward the portal by himself. His calm entrance briefly made strangers assume he must be another hidden high-rank student. Sticky Gel Firebomb took longer to cast than Chin Fan wanted, leaving mobility and interruption as serious weaknesses. Despite its excellent sustained damage, its heavy mana cost also meant one missed cast could waste a huge percentage of his total combat capacity. Buying 5 basic expensive mana potions consumed almost everything left from his inheritance, so the first public rookie trial needed to pay for itself quickly. Classmates quickly ruined that impression by announcing that he was the officially weak D-rank mage who had rejected S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan. The crowd immediately changed from impressed to convinced that Chin Fan had a death wish. His homeroom teacher, Zhang Yun, tried to stop him before the portal swallowed him. Zhang Yun argued that Chin Fan's face was currently a more reliable asset than his class. The warning came too late. Chin Fan crossed the portal carrying Sticky Gel Firebomb, a handful of expensive mana potions, and no team. Behind him, the principal learned his rank and became furious that a officially weak D-rank mage had entered alone. Zhang Yun was threatened with a massive written self-criticism if his student died in the beginner dungeon. Inside beginner dungeon Goblin Forest, Chin Fan immediately discovered that the portal had deposited him far from the school plaza. The forest smelled rotten, the terrain was uneven, and small green monsters moved through the undergrowth. His first concern was not looking heroic but learning exactly how Sticky Gel Firebomb behaved against real enemies. A goblin patrol gave him the first clean target. Chin Fan completed the long cast and launched the sticky projectile into the group. The initial damage looked unimpressive compared with the spectacle of higher-ranked skills. Then the gel spread across bodies, weapons, and the ground before continuing to burn. The goblins could not simply brush the flames away, because the spell had inherited the clinging behavior of its fused materials. The beginner dungeon Goblin Forest portal stood several stories tall in the school plaza and served as the standard beginner public rookie trial for newly awakened students. The principal's speech emphasized courage, while the crowd immediately translated courage into practical team building around tanks, healers, and higher ranks. Chin Fan entered alone because exposing God-tier Truth Furnace to random teammates would be more dangerous than handling weak goblins with a few carefully planned casts. The damage ticks kept landing after Chin Fan had already stopped channeling, confirming that the fusion had rewritten the spell rather than merely strengthening it. That first test also exposed how vulnerable Chin Fan remained whenever enemies survived long enough to reach him. A mutated goblin moved far faster than expected and forced the new mage into a desperate sprint through the trees. Chin Fan lacked the agility to win a normal chase, so he turned back toward the fire he had already created. A half-burned elite goblin emerged from the flames and tried to block the route. Chin Fan kicked it away, splashing sticky fire across his own shoes and pants. He panicked for a moment because the gel climbed his clothes instead of falling off. Then he noticed the flames produced no pain, heat damage, or burning cloth on his body. Sticky Gel Firebomb could not harm its own caster. That immunity converted the spell from a ranged attack into something far more unusual. Chin Fan deliberately rolled through the burning ground until sticky fire covered his entire body. The charging mutant slowed when its prey stood up inside the flames, instead of escaping them. Chin Fan rushed forward and tackled the goblin directly. Every point of contact transferred the burning gel to the monster, while Chin Fan remained completely unharmed. The mutant's superior speed became useless once he locked both arms around it. Several other goblins, still trapped in the original fire, reached the end of their health at nearly the same time. The mutated Goblin's speed forced Qin Fan to abandon the normal mage assumption that distance alone would keep a caster safe during a beginner fight. When his kick knocked an elite back into the flames, the impact also confirmed that ordinary physical actions could reposition burning targets without interrupting sticky gel firebomb. The accidental fire on his clothes became the first direct proof that caster immunity applied to both health and equipment, rather than only preventing pain. That detail mattered because self-ignition would have been useless if every use destroyed his uniform, shoes, and carried supplies. Once he understood the immunity, Qin Fan deliberately treated burning ground as a renewable coating rather than a hazard to avoid. Experience notifications stacked rapidly around Qin Fan. The accumulated kills pushed Qin Fan to level 2. Leveling restored his health and mana immediately, while granting 10 free stat points. Qin Fan split those points between Constitution and Spirit, instead of chasing more direct damage. Extra Constitution gave him enough health to survive mistakes during close-range experiments. Extra Spirit increased his mana pool enough to support an additional sticky gel firebomb before requiring a potion. The choice made sense because God-tier Truth Furnace had already given him damage far above normal D-rank expectations. His next realization was almost as valuable as the level. The burning gel covering his body still had several minutes left before the spell expired. Rather than waste that duration, Qin Fan began hunting goblins by direct contact. He sprinted through the forest as a moving source of his own fire. Bushes and vines ignited when the sticky flames brushed across them. A goblin eating beneath a tree froze when the burning student came charging toward it with open arms. Qin Fan grabbed the creature and let the existing flames do the work. 2 more goblins tried running before he reached them. One was knocked down and caught fire from the collision. The second tripped while watching. The strange burning pursuer closed the distance. Qin Fan no longer looked like a conventional mage fighting from the rear. For those few minutes, his entire body functioned as the delivery system for sticky gel firebomb. The bizarre strategy saved mana, because one original cast could be transferred to several enemies. The first mutant's panic after seeing burning prey charge toward it gave Qin Fan another advantage that did not appear anywhere on a status panel. Emissines understood conventional spells, but they had no instinctive answer for a smiling mage who intentionally closed distance while completely on fire. Direct contact also solved his accuracy problem, because a bear hug could not miss once Qin Fan had already reached the target. The tactic remained dangerous against anything strong enough to throw him away, so early Constitution investment was still essential. A small student party encountered Qin Fan while following the sound of panicked goblins. The group included a shield user, an archer, and a chubby healer who had been searching for safer targets. They expected a Lord-class boss monster, and instead saw a school uniform completely wrapped in dark fire. Qin Fan stopped long enough to warn them not to touch him. The students struggled to decide whether the burning figure was human, monster, or some unknown dungeon event. His school clothes and normal speech finally convinced them he was at least connected to the public rookie trial. Qin Fan left before explaining further, because the remaining spell duration mattered more than their questions. 2 goblins attempting to ambush that party became his next targets. He intercepted both creatures, transferred fire through close contact, and kept moving without asking for thanks. The stunned students realized the trail behind Qin Fan contained almost no surviving goblins. Following that trail became safer than exploring untouched sections of the forest. They kept their distance because none of them wanted to test whether Qin Fan's flames were friendly to other people. Outside the dungeon, the monitoring room began searching for the missing officially weak D-rank mage. Xiao Yuan had spent more than an hour checking screens and watching the death list. His student had not been declared dead, yet none of the ordinary feeds showed Qin Fan clearly. A flash of fire on a minor monitor finally caught Xiao Yuan's attention. The staff enlarged the footage and watched a burning humanoid rush through the forest. At first, the principal assumed an unknown monster had entered the beginner dungeon. The military observer, Colonel Fong, studied the movement more carefully. He noticed human balance, human tackling mechanics, and deliberate gestures that did not resemble monster behavior. The uniform silhouettes beneath the flame matched the school public rookie trial clothing. Xiao Yuan slowly realized the burning figure had Qin Fan's height and movement pattern. The conclusion sounded impossible because Qin Fan had awakened as a low-ranked mage, not a melee fire creature. Colonel Fong became interested, precisely because the combat method violated normal class expectations. A self-igniting soldier who remained immune to the flames could turn contact itself into an area control weapon. The principal's panic shifted toward excitement once the figure was clearly one of his own students. Zhang Yun's emotions were less stable because he still could not explain how a weak beginner fireball produced this result. Back inside the forest, Qin Fan continued, using the same flame duration until the remaining goblins pushed him toward level 3. He again invested heavily in survivability and mana, instead of wasting points on small immediate damage gains. His health and mana rose enough to make repeated fire experiments much safer. The 3 students following Qin Fan's burned trail debated whether he was a fire elemental, a hidden Lord-class boss, or an unusually reckless freshman. They only connected him to their school after noticing ordinary shoe prints and the recognizable silhouette of the public rookie trial uniform under the flames. Their confusion illustrated how completely God-tier Truth Furnace had separated Qin Fan's actual combat style from the expectations attached to a mage class. The chubby healer preferred following a terrifying human fire source over exploring sections of forest where untouched goblin patrols still waited. Then a deep roar shook the trees. The sound came from a creature far heavier than the goblins Qin Fan had been chasing. He followed the disturbance and found A-rank assassin Liam Mo fighting a level 5 forest troll. The level 5 forest troll stood several meters tall, carried a crude tree trunk weapon, and had goblins assisting from the sides. A rank assassin Liam Mo could evade its direct swings, but the supporting goblins kept interrupting his attack rhythm. The A-rank assassin was already tiring when he noticed Qin Fan watching from cover. A rank assassin Liam Mo called for help and promised a generous split of the loot. Qin Fan understood that the request was not as charitable as it sounded. A officially weak, D-rank mage would make convenient bait while the assassin recovered stamina. Instead of refusing immediately, Qin Fan considered the value of fighting under the dungeon cameras. A rank assassin Liam Mo had publicly asked for assistance, which meant the monitoring room could see who created the situation. Qin Fan stepped from cover while acting much more trusting than he actually felt. He hesitated aloud, making A-rank assassin Liam Mo repeat promises about cooperation and shared rewards. The assassin interpreted the reluctance as naivety rather than caution. Teachers watching remotely also assumed Qin Fan was about to let himself be used. Colonel Fong criticized A-rank assassin Liam Mo's willingness to sacrifice a weaker schoolmate for personal gain. The principal worried that Qin Fan lacked the battlefield awareness to recognize the trap. Qin Fan raised one hand and began charging sticky gel firebomb. A rank assassin Liam Mo relaxed because he expected a weak fire spell to distract only the smaller goblins. The sticky projectile landed across the monster group instead. Monitoring staff replayed the footage in slow motion because the strange tackle and burn method looked more like a berserker technique than spellcasting. Colonel Fong recognized deliberate human movement patterns before the teachers accepted that the burning figure belonged to their own school. The military observer immediately imagined heavy soldiers using similar self-ignition tactics to break formations through contact, rather than ranged casting. Zhang Yun mostly wondered how the quiet, D-rank student he knew had developed a combat method built around aggressively hugging monsters. Dark burning gel spread over the goblins and the level 5 forest troll at the same time. The first impact damage looked modest enough that the monitoring room almost dismissed the spell. Seconds later, sustained damage numbers continued appearing without another cast. Teachers immediately realized the beginner fireball had been structurally changed. Its effect persisted, spread across surfaces, and refused to vanish after the original impact. Colonel Fong concluded that Qin Fan had awakened a rare secondary talent capable of altering skill rules. Zhang Yun had never seen the hidden talent because Qin Fan himself had only discovered it after awakening. The school principal instantly understood how valuable a student with that kind of growth potential could become. The level 5 forest troll remained the larger problem because its health pool was far beyond ordinary goblins. Sticky gel firebomb kept burning, but Qin Fan still needed time for the damage to accumulate. A rank's assassin Liam Mo continued circling the fight while thinking about when he could claim the final blow. Qin Fan used the chaos to prepare another test of his fire immunity. He coded himself again and walked toward the assassin, instead of the level 5 forest troll. Assassin Liam Mo had already seen enough to understand what contact with those flames would mean. The A-rank student backed away, despite technically outranking Qin Fan by several grades. His attempt to threaten Qin Fan disappeared when the burning mage calmly offered to get closer. The monitoring room finally connected the earlier fire-covered figure with the officially weak D-rank mage on the main feed. Colonel Fong explained the trick to the teachers. Qin Fan was not using a second transformation ability. He was simply immune to his own persistent fire and had turned that immunity into a melee tactic. Before Qin Fan could finish intimidating A-rank assassin Liam Mo, a golden beam crashed down and stripped the sticky fire from his body. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan stepped from the trees in silver armor, with holy light still fading from her hand. She had seen Qin Fan covered in dark flames, beside an armed assassin, and reached the wrong conclusion immediately. A rank assassin Liam Mo tried to explain that Qin Fan had ignited himself on purpose. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan found that explanation even less believable than an attack. She treated A-rank assassin Liam Mo as the obvious aggressor and chased him through the forest with a glowing holy sword. Qin Fan cared less about the misunderstanding than the mana S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan had just wasted by extinguishing his useful flame. His irritation vanished when the burning level 5 forest troll finally collapsed. The kill granted a large amount of experience and pushed Qin Fan to level 4. A rare blue belt appeared among the drops. A ranked assassin, Liam Mo, had been landing repeated small strikes on the forest level 5 forest troll, but the supporting goblins prevented him from committing to a safe finishing sequence. His promise of an even loot split sounded generous, only because he expected Qin Fan to absorb enough danger to make the assassin's job easier. Qin Fan deliberately made the agreement visible to the monitoring cameras, so any later conflict would have a recorded starting point. The decision showed that his tactical thinking included human opponents as carefully as monster mechanics. The Troll brand Rare Sleeping Belt gave a major increase to health and physical defense. Its real value came from Sleep Strike. Hits against low-level targets had a significant chance to force a short sleep. Qin Fan immediately recognized the interaction with Sticky Gel Firebomb. Every damage tick from the persistent fire counted as another hit. A single cast could therefore roll the sleep effect again and again for several minutes. When a sleeping enemy took damage and woke, the next hit could also become a critical strike. Qin Fan equipped the oversized belt and tested the idea on another goblin patrol. One firebomb splashed across the group. Several goblins collapsed almost immediately as the belt triggered. The next fire tick woke them with critical damage. Another tick sent some of them back to sleep. The cycle repeated until the surviving monsters could barely remain conscious long enough to move. Qin Fan had accidentally created crowd control from a damage overtime spell. He invested the newest stat points into intelligence because his survivability had already improved dramatically. The added magic attack increased every future fire tick without changing the underlying fusion. Monitoring staff reacted even more strongly to the belt interaction than to the original self-ignition tactic. Colonel Fong saw a permanent control loop hiding inside two ordinary-looking mechanics. The school principal saw military recruitment interest rising and immediately became less willing to let Qin Fan leave cheaply. Jiang Yun quietly abandoned earlier plans to solve Qin Fan's career by introducing him to wealthy older women. The sustained fire on the level 5 forest troll also climbed in effectiveness over time, making the spell more threatening than its weak opening numbers suggested. Teachers initially focused on the low first hit and nearly missed how much total damage accumulated across hundreds of later ticks. Colonel Fong recognized that fixed-class textbooks could not explain a beginner fireball whose important property was duration, instead of burst damage. That difference was exactly why Qin Fan's low official magic attack did not translate into low total output. A low rumble then spread through the dungeon and silenced the forest. Emergency warnings appeared across the monitoring room. The final Lord-class boss had spawned at the central altar. It was a level 7 Lord-class mutant Lord-class Goblin King. The monster carried enormous strength, heavy defenses, and several times the health of the forest level 5 forest troll. Most students inside beginner dungeon Goblin Forest were still far below that level. The principal argued that the Lord-class boss was slow enough for students to escape if the fight became impossible. Colonel Fong focused on a more specific problem. Lord-class level suppression could reduce the rare sleeping belt's control chance and remove Qin Fan's safest advantage. Qin Fan saw the Lord-class boss warning differently. A Lord-class first kill promised experience, treasure, and a strong chance of dropping another skill book. A new skill meant another future target for God-tier Truth Furnace. He headed toward the central altar before cautious students could convince him otherwise. Dozens of public rookie trial participants had already gathered around the Lord-class Goblin King. The monster towered over them with one huge eye, a heavy bone axe, and enough raw strength to crush weak defenses instantly. Nobody wanted to attack first. Everyone wanted the guaranteed value associated with the first clear. A rank assassin Liam Mo arrived in poor condition after escaping S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan and tried to remain near the rear. Other students recognized the A-rank assassin and immediately pushed him toward leadership. Rumors had already distorted the Forceful 5 Forest Troll fight. Rank Paladin Xiao Yuan's holy purification removed Qin Fan's self-applied fire instantly, confirming that outside powers could still interfere with the technique. She misread his willingness to stand inside dark flames as evidence that A-rank assassin Liam Mo had affected his mind. A purification talisman produced no special reaction from Qin Fan, which only made S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan believe the supposed corruption ran deeper. Colonel Fong watched the misunderstanding from outside and realized explaining the truth would have required S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan to accept an even stranger tactic. Several students believed A-rank assassin Liam Mo had burned the level 5 forest troll to death with some hidden fire technique. Because his class was wind-aligned, one student invented an explanation about advanced fire and wind elemental synergy. A rank assassin Liam Mo knew the fire belonged to Qin Fan, but could not correct the story without losing face. His own reputation trapped him into accepting praise for an ability he did not possess. Qin Fan arrived while the crowd was still demanding that the supposed prodigy demonstrate his secret technique. Several students mocked the officially weak D-rank mage for appearing near a Lord-class boss far above his class. A rank assassin Liam Mo reacted very differently. He remembered the burning figure that had already forced him to retreat without taking a direct hit. Qin Fan politely mentioned the rumor that an A-rank genius had incinerated the forest, level 5 forest troll. Every word made A-rank assassin Liam Mo more uncomfortable because both students knew exactly who had supplied the fire. Cornered by the crowd, A-rank assassin Liam Mo encouraged Qin Fan to attack first. His real plan was to wait until the Lord-class boss became weak, then use assassin burst damage to steal the final hit. The surrounding students interpreted the move as generosity from a stronger senior. Qin Fan accepted because he understood A-rank assassin Liam Mo's intention and could manipulate it later. He warned everyone to move back before Sticky Gel Firebomb created an Uncan level 5 forest troll burn zone. Most laughed at the idea that D-rank splash damage could threaten them. Qin Fan aimed at the Lord-class Goblin King's enormous eye and completed the cast. The sticky projectile struck the exposed target cleanly. Its first damage number looked pathetic compared with the Lord-class boss's massive health. The laughter lasted only until the gel began bubbling inside the eye area and between cracks in the monster's skin. The rare sleeping belt had been designed for a creature far larger than Qin Fan, forcing him to adjust the fit before using its effect comfortably. Its raw health and defense bonuses were already valuable enough that early tank classes would have competed aggressively for the item. Qin Fan valued the control effect more because persistent damage gave him far more activation attempts than a normal attacker could generate. A single 5-minute burn created hundreds of opportunities for a short sleep to occur. Persistent fire started ticking every second. The Lord-class Goblin King became enraged by the attack and began swinging blindly across the altar. Students standing too close scattered when the bone axe smashed stone and sent debris through the clearing. The Lord-class boss's health continued dropping, even while Qin Fan stood at a safe distance. Some students blamed him for provoking the monster they had all come to fight anyway. Qin Fan ignored them and watched for the rare sleeping belt to overcome level suppression. Eventually, a sleep trigger succeeded. The Lord-class Goblin King collapsed in the middle of its own rampage. For a moment, the entire battlefield stopped. The next fire tick woke the monster with critical damage. More ticks eventually triggered sleep again. Qin Fan's belt and fused beginner fireball forced the Lord-class boss into an unreliable rhythm of attack, collapse, critical wake-up, and renewed burning. The control was not perfect because the level gap reduced the trigger rate. It was still enough to create repeated windows where everyone else could attack safely. Students who had mocked Qin Fan began using those openings while still failing to understand the full interaction. A Sank assassin Liam Mo remained hidden near the edge and watched the Lord-class boss's remaining health carefully. He wanted Qin Fan to perform the dangerous work without receiving the final reward. The Lord-class Goblin King's health dropped lower as the persistent fire continued. Qin Fan noticed A-rank assassin Liam Mo gradually moving closer. Instead of confronting him, Qin Fan let the assassin believe the plan was working. The Lord-class Goblin King's level suppression did not remove Sleep Strike completely. It only reduced the chance enough that Qin Fan needed repeated ticks to force success. That difference preserved the strategy because Sticky Gel Firebomb specialized in creating far more hits than ordinary spells. Students near the altar benefited from the control windows, without realizing the equipment responsible could be removed whenever Qin Fan wanted. A rank assassin Liam Mo therefore built his kill-steal plan around a condition that existed only as long as Qin Fan allowed it. When the Lord-class boss entered probable kill range, Liam Mo prepared his fastest charge. Qin Fan quietly opened his equipment menu. The rare sleeping belt was the mechanism keeping the Lord-class boss unstable. Removing it would stop new sleep triggers instantly. Liam Mo launched toward the Lord-class Goblin King, with his dagger ready for the final strike. At the exact moment the assassin committed, Qin Fan unequipped the belt. The forced drowsiness vanished from the monster. The Lord-class Goblin King opened its huge eye with full awareness, just as Liam Mo arrived within striking distance. Liam Mo had expected a helpless sleeping target. He instead met a furious Lord-class boss holding a massive bone axe. The Lord-class Goblin King swung once, with everything it had. The blow launched Liam Mo across the clearing, before his dagger could secure the kill. The assassin crashed into a tree, with almost no health remaining. The Lord-class Goblin King had spent its last strength on that attack. Sticky Gel Firebomb finished the remaining health seconds later. The system awarded Qin Fan the first kill, because his persistent spell delivered the final damage. The entire clearing went silent before the reward notifications began. A purple treasure chest appeared at the altar. Liam Mo's supporters struggled to explain how their supposed hidden fire expert had been defeated by the same Lord-class boss he planned to steal. Qin Fan calmly re-equipped the rare sleeping belt and approached the fallen assassin. The Lord-class Goblin King's revenge strike left Liam Mo barely conscious, making it impossible for the assassin to contest the loot after Qin Fan secured the final damage. Students, who had invented the wind and fire genius story, abandoned it once the supposed fire expert needed a stretcher. Qin Fan's quiet equipment change remained invisible to them, preserving the appearance the sleep failure had been random. Only the timing made the coincidence suspicious to anyone who understood how deliberately he had managed the entire fight. He commented that the belt had somehow come off at a remarkably inconvenient moment. Nobody believed the coincidence, but nobody wanted to challenge the smiling mage, who had just level 5 forests, trolled the entire Lord-class boss fight. The student party from earlier finally recognized Qin Fan as the burning figure they had followed through the forests. They also realized the forest level 5 forest troll's fire had belonged to him rather than Liam Mo. The social story around the A-rank assassin collapsed almost as quickly as the Lord-class Goblin King had. Qin Fan ignored the crowd and opened the purple chest. The first reward was a rare molten demon ring. It raised intelligence and spirit while granting greedy fire. Whenever Qin Fan's fire damage landed a critical hit, part of that damage returned as mana. The interaction with his rare sleeping belt was immediate. Sleep created frequent critical wake-up hits. Critical fire hits now restored mana. A long burning fight could therefore refill part of the mana spent creating it. The second reward was a skill book called Movement Skill Firepath. The ability created a burning trail beneath the caster, while increasing movement speed. Enemies standing on the trail took fire damage each second. For a normal mage, Movement Skill Firepath was primarily a retreat and kiting skill. For Qin Fan, it offered another persistent fire source that God-tier Truth Furnace could eventually rebuild. The Lord Kill and First Clear bonus pushed him through multiple levels. Reaching level 5 also granted a major increase to every base attribute. The Movement Skill Firepath book dissolved after learning, leaving the new movement skill permanently available for later fusion rather than remaining a tradable item. The Lord First Kill reward also included enough experience to leap through level 5 and reach level 6 before the public rookie trial closed. Crossing the level 5 threshold granted a flat bonus to all base attributes, strengthening Qin Fan's body beyond what normal D-rank expectations suggested. After adding his free points to intelligence, his magic attack approached triple digits, while health and mana climbed into ranges unusual for low-level mages. The rare sleeping belt contributed hundreds of health and heavy defense, making his final stat panel resemble a badly categorized tank more than a fragile caster. The rare Molten Demon Ring raised both intelligence and spirit, increasing damage and mana capacity, before Greedy Fire even began refunding resources. Most classmates were celebrating levels 2 or 3, making Qin Fan's level 6 result another hidden gap the crowd had not yet understood. Qin spent his free points aggressively on intelligence, now that his health and mana were no longer beginner-level weaknesses. His magic attack climbed toward triple digits. His health pool became unusually high for a mage. The rare Molten Demon Ring expanded his mana capacity, while giving persistent crits a recovery function. By the time the dungeon began closing, Qin Fan had become almost unrecognizable from the D-rank student who entered that morning. His class label had not changed. His actual combat system had changed completely. The collapsing dungeon forced every remaining student back toward the school portal. Qin Fan walked out casually, while teachers and spectators waited to hear who had killed the final Lord class boss. Most expected S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan, or before the truth spread, Liam Mo. The beginner dungeon goblin forest itself began dissolving when the public rookie trial timer ended, with trees, mountains, and sky breaking apart under the forced exit. Qin Fan left before experimenting further because remaining inside a closing beginner realm was not worth risking his new equipment. Outside, spectators had been guessing between S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan and Liam Mo as the most likely Lord-class boss killers. Almost nobody placed serious money on the officially weak D-rank mage, who had entered alone with a beginner's staff and several potions. The principal's immediate excitement confused the plaza because school administrators had treated Qin Fan as a probable casualty only hours earlier. The school principal rushed toward Qin Fan before anyone else could claim him. He publicly announced that the officially weak D-rank mage had secured the first kill of the level 7 lord. The crowd initially assumed the principal had read the wrong name. Then injured students emerged and began describing the sticky fire, sleep loop, and disastrous Liam Mo attempt. The convenience store owner remembered Qin Fan, buying fuel, soap, and strange ingredients before the public rookie trial. His earlier warning about fire extinguishers suddenly sounded much less like a joke. Colonel Fong approached with genuine military interest. He had watched a low-ranked student invent tactics, instead of simply relying on class rarity. The principal immediately became protective of the school's new source of prestige. Zhang Yun experienced the opposite problem. The remaining students emerged bruised, exhausted, and carrying the visual evidence of how difficult beginner dungeon goblin forest had actually been. Liam Mo arrived on a stretcher, creating a brutal contrast with Qin Fan, standing near the principal without significant visible injuries. That contrast did more to convince the crowd than any speech about hidden talent could have accomplished. Qin Fan publicly credited the school, principal, and Zhang Yun instead of claiming every piece of attention for himself. The political compliment cost him nothing, while giving administrators a reason to reward and protect their suddenly valuable student. The principal responded with a scholarship worth far more than Qin Fan's entire previous savings. Colonel Fong also offered access to an elite military training opportunity, normally reserved for much stronger official ranks. Education officials supplied an emergency spatial scroll, capable of escaping danger across a large distance. Qin Fan had entered beginner dungeon goblin forest, almost broke, and returned with money, rare gear, cemetery, interest, and a life-saving escape tool. His student had gone from someone he feared would starve to someone major organizations might compete to recruit. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan emerged later and cut through the celebration by grabbing Qin Fan directly. She wanted answers about the fire, the Lord-class boss, and several misunderstandings from the forest. Qin Fan continued joking while she dragged him toward her family's luxury hover vehicle. Nearby, Liam Mo regained consciousness inside a Moonring ambulance. He saw S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan pulling Qin Fan into her private car and misunderstood the scene as romantic. The ambulance itself had not been sent by S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan at all. Moonring's medical network had simply dispatched the nearest available unit after detecting an injured participant. Liam Mo's hopeful interpretation collapsed as the hovercar passed without slowing. Qin Fan asked S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan whether she should at least acknowledge the wounded assassin. Liam Mo briefly believed the Moonring ambulance proved S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan secretly cared about him despite their fight in the forest. Seeing her physically drag Qin Fan toward the private hover car destroyed that interpretation before anyone needed to correct him. S-rank Paladin Xiao Yuan later explained that Moon Ring hospitals automatically dispatched nearby medical units based on coverage, not romance or personal preference. The clarification made Liam Mo's hopeful theory an accident of logistics rather than evidence of hidden affection. Qin Fan found the misunderstanding funny enough to keep teasing Xiao Yuan during the flight to Moonring headquarters. She replied that she was not his doctor and had no reason to waive. The answer made Liam Mo's imagined relationship even more embarrassing than the failed Lord-class boss steal. Xiao Yuan then took Qin Fan to powerful Moon Ring Corporation headquarters. The top-floor office displayed the kind of wealth that made his earlier potion expenses look microscopic. There he met Xiao Tianing, Moon Ring's chairman, and Xiao Yuan's father. The older man carried the pressure of a high-advancement powerhouse, even while dressed like a corporate executive. At first, Xiao Tianing assumed his S-rank daughter had actually killed the Lord-class Goblin King. He interpreted Qin Fan's credited victory as Xiao Yuan generously protecting the officially weak D-rank mage's pride. Xiao Yuan repeatedly insisted that Qin Fan had done the work himself. Her father remained skeptical until the dungeon footage and combat data forced him to reconsider. Xiao Tianing's office occupied a level of luxury Qin Fan had only seen through media before reincarnation. A dragon's skull decorated the wall, while an advanced dungeon core served as something close to an ordinary desk ornament. Even the furniture was made from high-level monster materials, expensive enough to make Qin Fan afraid of damaging the couch. The chairman initially evaluated Qin Fan like a business asset, but the resemblance to Su Weining disrupted that level 5 forest trolled attitude. Qin Fan mistook the older man's softened stare for romantic interest and immediately defended his own virtue. Xiao Tianing reacted with outrage and explained that Qin Fan's father had looked nothing like him. The photograph finally redirected the conversation toward the correct family connection. Before business could settle, Xiao Tianing became distracted by Qin Fan's face. The resemblance reminded him strongly of Qin Fan's deceased mother. Qin Fan misread the emotional stare and created an increasingly absurd misunderstanding about the chairman's intentions. Xiao Tianing finally produced an old photograph to prove the connection. The woman in the picture was Qin Fan's mother, Su Weining. Xiao Tianing explained that she had been a distant cousin and an important person in his youth. Xiao Yuan then recognized another problem. Her own mother's appearance strongly resembled the same old photograph. The chairman awkwardly admitted that his wife had altered her appearance after learning how deeply he remembered Su Weining. The family conversations became much stranger than Qin Fan had expected from a corporate meeting. The old picture created another shock when Xiao Yuan recognized features that closely resembled her own mother's younger appearance. Xiao Tianing admitted his wife had altered her appearance after learning how deeply he remembered Su Weining from his youth. Xiao Yuan's image of her father's romantic history collapsed, while Qin Fan treated the revelation like an impossible family drama. The chairman then produced a formal contract that would have made Qin Fan his adopted eldest son and granted major family rights. Qin Fan rejected changing his identity merely to satisfy Xiao Tianing's old rivalry with Qin Fan's father. Xiao Tianing revealed the hidden monthly support payments while trying to prove he had already treated Qin Fan like family. The bank records turned that defense into a new crisis because the amounts did not match. Xiao Tianing also revealed that he had been secretly supporting Qin Fan financially for years. A charity fund under Moonring management was supposed to send the orphan a much larger monthly amount. Qin Fan showed his bank records and proved he had received only a small fraction of that support. The chairman's anger immediately shifted away from family embarrassment toward the missing money. Someone inside the charity operation had been skimming most of Qin Fan's allowance for years. Xiao Tianing ordered an investigation while Qin Fan focused on the practical fact that he had survived poverty unnecessarily. The chairman's attitude toward him changed further after reviewing the public rookie trial footage in detail. A officially weak D-rank mage with a rule-changing fusion talent was far more valuable than the class label suggested. Xiao Tianing tested Qin Fan's confidence by offering resources only if he could prove himself again. He then revealed the prize for Moon Ring's upcoming citywide public rookie trial. Xiao Tianing claimed he had authorized 10,000 yuan every month for Qin Fan's living expenses. Qin Fan's account showed only 1,000 arriving, sometimes even late. Throughout the years, he had been surviving on discount food. The missing 9,000 per month transformed the chairman's embarrassment into genuine fury. He immediately contacted the charity manager responsible for distributing the funds and demanded a complete accounting. The responsible manager's name also resembled Su Weining closely enough to create yet another awkward reminder of Xiao Tianing's unresolved past. This time the chairman focused on repayment, promising the stolen amount, interest, and consequences for whoever had diverted it. Qin Fan recognized that the incident had turned Moonring's chairman from a distant benefactor into someone who personally owed him. He jokingly suggested marriage to Xiao Yuan as an easier route to becoming half a son without changing his own surname. The proposal horrified Xiao Yuan and immediately restored Xiao Tianing's protective instincts. The epic sage's Sai was an epic ring with spell penetration, major stats, instant casting for lower-level spells, and reduced cooldowns. For Qin Fan, instant casting would remove the greatest weakness from Sticky Gel Firebomb and every other slow mage skill he planned to create. The ring immediately became more attractive than any cash payment. Xiao Tianing acquired first place in the private-public rookie trial instead of simply handing the item over. He also assigned Xiao Yuan to support Qin Fan during the event. She objected to being volunteered as someone else's backup, but her father overruled her. The chairman warned that several other S-rank rookies would also compete. A necromancer from another school had awakened a powerful undead class. Twin sisters from a rival school possessed complementary high-rank elemental abilities. The public rookie trial would be a public talent showcase, rather than a casual family event. A classified combat analysis report interrupted the family argument and changed Xiao Tianing's attitude again. The report emphasized Qin Fan's zero recorded damage during the Lord-class boss encounter, exceptional control coverage, and tactical evaluation at S-rank level. Estimated mana expenditure did not match the capacity expected from a low-level, officially weak D-rank mage, creating another mystery around his sustained fire. Rather than explain God-tier Truth Furnace and the rare Molten Demon Ring, Qin Fan allowed Xiao Tianing to build his own theory. The chairman convinced himself that D-rank might be camouflage for an unknown hidden class with rule-level fire abilities. Qin Fan neither confirmed nor denied that fantasy, deciding mystery was safer than exposing his true talent mechanics. Xiao Tianing immediately became more willing to pair his daughter with someone he now viewed as strategic national-level potential. Xiao Yuan watched her father move from protective outrage to enthusiastic matchmaking after reading one report. The Epic Sage's Sai public rookie trial became Xiao Tianing's way to demand another public proof before investing even more resources. Qin Fan accepted anyway because the Epic Sage's Sai directly amplified the kind of magic system he was building. Before leaving, Moonring transferred compensation related to the missing charity funds. Qin Fan's bank balance finally contained enough money to buy real equipment instead of improvised scraps. The sudden wealth did not make him abandon improvised thinking. It simply gave God-tier Truth Furnace better ingredients to consume. Xiao Yuan drove Qin Fan toward Moonring's shopping complex so he could prepare for the city public rookie trial properly. The professional equipment floor immediately reminded him why mage careers favored rich families. Basic skill books cost hundreds of thousands, while rare equipment climbed into 7 figures without hesitation. Qin Fan complained about a mediocre staff, costing more than an ordinary person might save in years. Xiao Yuan answered that monster hunters paid for survival, not decorative value. A weak-looking item was expensive because one extra stat could decide whether its owner returned from a dungeon. Qin accepted the logic, while still treating every price tag like a personal insult. He spotted Jiang Yun elsewhere in the mall, escorting a wealthy older woman. The teacher froze when he noticed his supposedly broke D-rank student shopping beside Moonring's heiress. Qin Fan politely pretended the man could not possibly be his respectable homeroom teacher. Moonring's equipment floor displayed the Epic Sage's Sai on a giant holographic advertisement, keeping tomorrow's prize visible while Qin Fan shopped. Spectators praised Xiao Tianing for offering such a valuable ring, without knowing the chairman had every intention of keeping it within his daughter's orbit. The display reminded Qin Fan that instant casting would eliminate the awkward chanting window enemies had repeatedly exploited in beginner dungeon Goblin Forest. For someone building persistent spells, reducing cooldowns was almost as valuable, because each battlefield layer could be refreshed more aggressively. Jiang Yun escaped before the comparison between their companions became more uncomfortable. A store manager arrived after receiving instructions from Xiao Tianing. Moonring's staff treated Qin Fan like an important guest, despite his worn clothes and burned public rookie trial uniform. His first serious purchase target was a magic shield skill book. The base version created a barrier whose scaled with intelligence. Qin Fan did not care that the standard shield was mediocre. God-tier Truth Furnace meant a basic defensive template could become whatever the right fusion materials allowed. Xiao Yuan initially refused to subsidize his shopping jokes and shameless bargaining. After enough arguing, she arranged a large internal discount. Qin Fan bought the shield skill before anyone could change the price again. He also purchased a red maple staff that granted useful spell penetration. The staff looked unimpressive, but penetration mattered against the stronger defenses expected in the next public rookie trial. With normal equipment handled, Qin Fan began selecting stranger purchases. He chose a one-use shadow orb, capable of teleporting its user to the point where the orb landed. The item was expensive because emergency repositioning could escape lethal situations. The red maple staff added spell penetration rather than flashy damage, making it useful against richer rookies, whose equipment carried real magical resistance. Qin Fan learned that expensive equipment often mattered through quiet efficiency instead of spectacular visual effects. That lesson fit God-tier Truth Furnace perfectly because ordinary-looking properties could become decisive once combined with the right skill. The staff remained normal equipment, preserving his limited fusion opportunities for effects he could not obtain through straightforward purchases. Qin Fan immediately imagined combining teleportation with an offensive spell instead of using the orb conventionally. He also purchased an explosive talisman built to release a powerful physical blast. Xiao Yuan became increasingly suspicious as the pile shifted from mage equipment toward items resembling demolition supplies. Then, she reminded him that the Moon Ring public rookie trial banned offensive consumables. Only approved equipment and boats pass the entrance inspection. Qin Fan smiled because God-tier Truth Furnace created a loophole. If the talisman became part of a learned skill before the public rookie trial, security would no longer be inspecting a consumable. The effect would exist inside his magic rather than inside his bag. He did not explain that reasoning to Xiao Yuan. He simply claimed the dangerous purchases were for harmless private experimentation. The excuse became less convincing when he added white phosphorus, sticky fire slime, induced public rookie trial alcohol, and other combustible materials. Xiao Yuan openly questioned whether he was preparing for a competition or planning to demolish the dungeon. Qin Fan called the shopping tactical diversity. The manager looked nervous and enough to prefer not knowing the final recipe. Meanwhile, Liam Mo recovered in the hospital and learned that tomorrow's public rookie trial offered the epic Sage's Sigh. The shadow orb normally existed as an emergency consumable, but Qin Fan saw its destination rule as something more valuable than the item itself. By integrating that rule into a beginner fireball variant during his overnight work, he gained a hidden movement option tied to his offensive magic. The result meant an enemy could dodge the projectile, yet still create a useful landing point for Qin Fan's own repositioning. He kept that ability out of the morning demonstrations, so no competitor would enter the public rookie trial, already planning around it. His older brother contacted allies rather than accepting the humiliating beginner dungeon, Goblin Forest outcome. An S-rank necromancer named Wang Sun was expected to enter the same Moonring event. Liam Mo planned to cooperate with stronger competitors instead of facing Qin Fan alone again. The partnership gave Qin Fan an organized enemy group waiting inside the public rookie trial. He knew none of their exact plans yet, but the possibility made additional skill fusion even more valuable. Moonring's hover car eventually dropped him outside his modest apartment building. Neighbors watched the luxury vehicle and immediately assumed Qin Fan had found a wealthy patron. Xiao Yuan reminded him again that prohibited consumables could not enter the public rookie trial. Qin Fan promised to follow the rule, without promising to stop using the materials before then. Once alone, he spread his purchases across the small apartment, like components in an improvised laboratory. The first fusion project began with Magic Shield. At Qin Fan's current intelligence, the ordinary barrier could absorb only a limited amount of damage. It was useful, but nowhere near enough to justify relying on defense instead of movement. He selected the explosive talisman as the fusion material. God-tier Truth Furnace consumed the item, while forcing its effect into the shield's magical structure. The explosive talisman carried a fixed blast far stronger than Qin Fan's ordinary defensive spells could ever produce at his current level. Fusing the talisman into Magic Shield preserved the blast concept while removing the consumable object that security rules prohibited. Explosive Shield also doubled the barrier scaling, making the defensive portion stronger before the detonation effect even mattered. A melee opponent trying to break through would therefore spend effort destroying protection only to trigger punishment at the exact moment they succeeded. The process drained spirit force and caused another wave of severe mental pain. When it ended, Magic Shield had evolved into Explosive Shield. The new barrier had much higher durability than the original version. Its defining effect activated when the shield broke or naturally expired. At that moment, the barrier detonated outward, with combined physical and fire damage. Anyone attacking through the shield would therefore trigger a blast at close range. Ignoring the barrier was not a complete answer, because expiration would still produce the same explosion. Qin Fan had turned a basic defensive spell into protection, area damage, and knockback at once. The talisman itself no longer existed as an inventory item. Its rule had been absorbed permanently into the skill. That result confirmed his security check theory before the public rookie trial even started. The next project used movement skill, Fire Path. Originally, movement skill Fire Path merely increased movement speed while leaving damaging flames behind the caster. It was a respectable kiting ability, but too conventional for Qin Fan's plans. He gathered the combustible materials purchased throughout the day. Purgatory Scorched Earth demanded much more fusion material than sticky gel firebomb, which explained why the mental backlash nearly rendered Qin Fan unconscious immediately. White phosphorus contributed persistent ignition behavior, while sticky fuels reinforced the zone's refusal to behave like ordinary temporary flame. Indus public rookie trial alcohol and other accelerants supported rapid spread across terrain, rather than concentrating everything into one projectile. God-tier Truth Furnace translated those physical properties into a mobile magical environment, instead of leaving recognizable chemicals behind. Gasoline, sticky compounds, white phosphorus, rubber, alcohol, and other fuel sources entered the God-tier Truth Furnace process. The amount of material was far greater than during the original sticky gel firebomb fusion. Qin Fan understood the mental strain could scale with the complexity of what he demanded. He activated the talent anyway. Pain hit almost instantly, far beyond the headache created by his first experiment. His muscles locked while spirit power drained. Under the pressure of rebuilding the skill, Qin Fan remained conscious long enough to see the fusion complete. Movement skill Fire Path evolved into a new area skill called Purgatory Scorched Earth. The moment the notification appeared, exhaustion finally knocked him unconscious. Morning arrived with Qin Fan feeling physically intact and mentally battered. Xiao Yuan came to collect him and found the apartment door unanswered. She kicked the door from its frame rather than waiting for permission. Her silver combat armor made the dramatic entrance look more like a raid than a pickup. Xiao Yuan's anger changed briefly to concern when she saw how exhausted Qin Fan looked. The room smelled of fuel, chemicals, and burned materials left from the overnight fusion. Xiao Yuan arrived with breakfast, despite claiming she was only there to keep Qin Fan from missing the family public rookie trial. Her concern appeared before the embarrassing misunderstanding, showing that the beginner dungeon goblin forest partnership had already changed how she treated him. Qin Fan's explanation about overnight skill work sounded suspicious, only because the room still contained the smell and debris of his fusion experiments. The broken apartment door became another practical reminder that an S-rank Paladin solved ordinary problems with far more strength than necessary. Several discarded tissues, used for cleaning equipment, sat near the work area. Xiao Yuan connected the exhausted teenager and suspicious trash to a completely different explanation. Qin Fan tried telling her he had spent the night working on skills. She misunderstood the phrasing and became even more embarrassed. The argument ended with Xiao Yuan ordering him to shower and prepare quickly. Qin Fan realized her imagination had traveled somewhere he had never intended. He cared much more about checking Purgatory Scorched Earth. The upgraded skill created a large burning zone around its caster. Enemies inside the area took continuous fire damage and suffered reduced mobility. Allies recognized by the caster received healing, and a substantial movement speed increase instead. The fire zone also interacted aggressively with hostile flames. External fire entering the area could be consumed and converted into additional strength for Qin Fan's own effect. That property turned the spell into both battlefield control and a direct answer to enemy fire mages. The skill followed Qinfan as he moved, instead of remaining fixed at one location. His only obvious weakness was that his own agility remained poor. At the venue, major schools had brought their strongest rookies because the epic sage's sigh could reshape an entire early mage progression path. Liam Mo's presence showed that his injuries had not erased his determination to restore status after the Lord-class Goblin King humiliation. Wang Sun's undead specialization made him much more dangerous than the ordinary classmates Qinfan had manipulated. Inside the beginner public rookie trial, the twin sisters added another problem. Because coordinated S-rank elemental users could create combinations Qinfan had not yet tested against. A mobile burning field was much more dangerous if someone faster could carry its center through enemy territory. Xiao Yuan happened to possess exactly that kind of speed. Qinfan kept the full plan to himself until they reached the Moonring public rookie trial venue. The plaza outside was already crowded with rookies, families, scouts, and representatives from major organizations. Thousands of people expected the event to reveal the city's next generation of elite fighters. Qinfan and Xiao Yuan entered through VIP access because Moonring was hosting the trial. He joked that skipping the line was an act of charity for everyone behind them. Xiao Yuan interpreted the comment as further evidence that his shamelessness had recovered overnight. Liam Mo appeared near the entrance with Wang Sun. The rank assassin tried to restore his pride by acting confident around the S-rank necromancer. Wang Sun threatened Qinfan through references to his strongest undead summon. Qinfan responded by asking whether the necromancer had literally dug up his own mother's grave. The joke landed badly enough that nearby conversations stopped. Xiao Yuan tried hiding her laughter, while Wang Sun became visibly hostile. The confrontation established that Liam Mo had found stronger backing after the beginner dungeon Goblin Forest disaster. The security scanner checked physical possessions rather than reconstructing the history of how each learned skill had been created. That distinction allowed Qinfan to obey the literal equipment rules, while entering with effects derived from items the rules would normally ban. God-tier Truth Furnace therefore created regulatory advantages as well as combat advantages by erasing the boundary between material and learned magic. Liam Mo's frustration at the clean scan confirmed he had expected Qinfan's suspicious shopping to become an easy disqualification. Qinfan then met the twin S-rank competitors from another school. Lu Bing and Lu Hua possessed opposite elemental temperaments and complementary abilities. One carried a fiery personality, while the other remained much colder and quieter. Their names and visual themes seemed reversed enough for Qinfan to call them false advertising. The more temperamental twin nearly attacked him on the plaza. Her sister dismissed the argument before security needed to intervene. The trial entrance included a strict scan for prohibited consumable weapons. Liam Mo watched Qinfan closely because he had seen the suspicious shopping activity. The scanner found nothing illegal. The explosive talisman and combustible ingredients were gone because Truth Furnace had already converted them into skill rules. Qinfan carried only legal equipment and normal supply. Liam Mo could not understand how someone who purchased obvious contraband passed completely clean. That confusion protected the existence of Truth Furnace better than any direct lie. The talent did not store banned objects inside Qinfan. It transformed the meaning of those objects into magic. The private realm's terrain felt unstable beneath the vegetation, hinting that careless area attacks could alter more than the monsters standing nearby. Xiao Yuan's instinct was to discuss routes, enemy types, and score efficiency before making any move. Qinfan's instinct was to test the newest fusion under real battlefield conditions before committing to a conventional strategy. That difference created constant arguments, but also forced both of them to justify their assumptions instead of relying entirely on rank. No ordinary security scanner could confiscate a concept already embedded in a learned skill. The participants finally crossed the portal into Moonring's private secret realm. High-ranking officials watched from a separate VIP observation area. The city governor treated the event as both competition and recruitment opportunity. Military and educational representatives had access to many live feeds. Xiao Tianning publicly downplayed Qinfan, despite privately investing heavily in his potential. He described the officially weak D-rank mage as an ordinary student his daughter had chosen to help. The performance kept other organizations from understanding how seriously Moonring already valued him. Inside the secret realm, Qinfan noticed dense vegetation decaying magical plants, and unstable ground. Xiao Yuan immediately asked for an actual plan. Qin Fan delayed with jokes because his intended strategy required her cooperation, in a way she would probably hate. He first needed to prove Purgatory Scorched Earth was strong enough to justify the embarrassment. The spell activated after a short cast. Dark red fire spread through the surrounding ground and transformed the terrain into a burning field. Grass vanished while wet soil hardened under the extreme heat. Purgatory Scorched Earth recognized team membership automatically, which meant its positive and negative effects separated allies without Qin Fan manually targeting anyone. Xiao Yuan received healing from the same zone that burned hostile creatures, giving the spell simultaneous offense and sustain. The movement boost was percentage-based, so an already fast S-rank Paladin gained far more absolute speed than Qin Fan ever could. That scaling interaction was the reason carrying Qin Fan transformed the spell from a strong area skill into a roaming map-clearing engine. Xiao Yuan prepared to escape the area until she realized that the flames were not harming her. Because they were officially teamed, the spell recognized her as an ally. A constant healing effect began restoring her, while a major movement speed boost strengthened her already exceptional agility. Xiao Yuan's combat speed climbed far above normal rookie levels. The revelation changed Qin Fan's strategy from merely good to absurdly efficient. He did not need to outrun the monsters personally. He only needed the center of Purgatory Scorched Earth to travel quickly across the map. Since the zone followed Qin Fan, Xiao Yuan could move the entire effect by carrying him. Every monster they passed would enter the burning field, without either student stopping to fight normally. Xiao Yuan hated the proposal almost as soon as she understood it. She offered alternatives involving shoulders, dragging, or other less embarrassing arrangements. Chan rejected options that interfered with casting or risked smashing his face into the terrain. He argued that being carried securely would leave both hands free and keep the moving spell stable. Xiao Yuan's strongest objection was the live broadcast. Her father and most of the city's influential organizations could be watching every camera. Xiao Yuan rejected being treated like transportation because the trial was publicly broadcast, and her father monitored the feeds directly. Qin Fan argued from physics rather than dignity, pointing out that shoulder carrying would destabilize him while both hands needed freedom for casting. Dragging him would preserve her speed, but destroy his clothes, skin, and concentration across rough terrain. A secure piggyback arrangement became the least ridiculous option, only because every alternative was mechanically worse. Qin Fan offered to accept all damage to his own reputation if anyone misunderstood the arrangement. That offer did not make Xiao Yuan feel better. Before they settled the argument, a giant floating trial scoreboard appeared above the realm. A new first-place name had accumulated an impossible number of points within only a few minutes. The registered name was Su Weining. Qin Fan stopped joking immediately. Su Weining was his deceased mother's name. Someone had entered a Moonring trial using that identity and was already dominating the rankings. The coincidence was too specific to dismiss. Xiao Yuan understood the personal meaning as soon as Qin Fan's expression changed. He suggested moving slowly, while he carried her himself if necessary. The offer made little tactical sense, because Qin Fan's agility remained terrible compared with hers. Xiao Yuan crouched and told him to climb onto her back instead. She warned that any inappropriate movement would end the partnership immediately. Qin Fan accepted before pride could slow them down. The floating trial scoreboard's impossible early score mattered even before the name became personal, because it suggested someone had found a Lord-class boss or mass-clearing method immediately. Seeing Su Wanning transformed that strategic curiosity into suspicion. The name belonged to someone both Qin Fan and Xiao Tianing had reason to remember, making random coincidence extremely unlikely. Xiao recognized the change in Qin Fan before he explained everything, because his usual joking stopped almost instantly. The moment Xiao Yuan began running, Purgatory's Scorched Earth's speed boost turned her into a silver blur. The moving fire zone carved a wide burning path through the secret realm. Weak monsters entered the flames before they could even identify the two competitors. Continuous area damage began stacking points without Xiao Yuan swinging her sword. The strategy turned movement itself into mass farming. Behind them, the active fire continued damaging anything that wandered onto the route later. In the VIP area, the governor reacted more strongly to Xiao Yuan carrying Qin Fan than to the first wave of kills. Xiao Tianing was visibly unhappy about the optics. Colonel Fong focused on the tactical efficiency instead. A high-speed carrier combined with a mobile persistent damage zone could clear territory faster than ordinary combat teams. The first lap through the forest proved the analysis. Qin Fan's score climbed in rapid bursts. Xiao Tianning's irritation disappeared when he noticed the name Su Wanning on the same floating trial scoreboard. The chairman immediately ordered people outside the realm to trace the suspicious registration. His connection to Qin Fan's mother made the provocation personal for him as well. Xiao Yuan's boosted movement produced afterimages, while Qin Fan's burning zone stayed centered on him through every turn. That combination allowed the pair to pass monsters without stopping, leaving delayed kills behind them. As the trail remained active, the score notifications therefore continued. After targets disappeared from sight, proving the route itself had become a persistent hazard. Qin Fan no longer needed to aim sticky gel firebomb at every weak monster when the entire ground beneath them functioned as one fused attack. Inside the trial, Xiao Yuan continued accelerating toward the top-ranked position. Level 6 mutant goblins died after entering the scorched area for only a short time. The rare Molten Demon Ring began refunding mana whenever burning enemies suffered critical damage. Qin Fan's mana pool refilled, while the area skill remained active. His previous Lord-class boss reward had now become the support engine for his newest fusion. More enemies meant more chances for critical fire damage. More critical fire meant more mana returning to Qin Fan. The cycles let him sustain a battlefield effect that would normally empty a mage quickly. With mana overflowing, Qin Fan layered ordinary movement skill, Fire Path over Purgatory Scorched Earth. The second fire source increased damage across the route. Xiao Yuan was already running. The pair's score climbed past competitors, who were still stopping for individual fights. Xiao Yuan finally understood that Qin Fan's strength came less from raw rank than from combining mechanics other people treated separately. She asked how the new ability worked. Qin Fan refused to reveal Truth Furnace and hid the answer behind another joke. He claimed marriage might qualify her for access to classified information. The governor watching from the VIP area initially focused on the awkward visual of Moonring's heiress, carrying a D-rank boy through the competition. Colonel Fong redirected attention toward the military value of a fast carrier, moving a persistent damage zone through clustered enemies. Xiao Tianning tolerated the tactic only after the kill rate became impossible to dismiss. The suspicious Su Waning registration then replaced his parental irritation with a direct order to investigate whoever had entered under that name. Xiao Yuan nearly lost her running line while yelling at him. Even during the argument, neither of them slowed enough for the surrounding monsters to survive. Qin Fan's hand movements eventually made Xiao Yuan suspicious that he was preparing another strange trick. He adopted solemn-looking gestures and chanted deliberately ridiculous syllables to keep himself entertained. Xiao Yuan initially assumed the motions were part of some mysterious high-level casting method. The nonsense incantation ruined that impression, once she recognized it as meaningless rhythm rather than ancient magic. Qin Fan had already learned that presentation mattered far less than whether the spell actually worked. His overnight loadout also included a beginner fireball variant incorporating Shadow Orb's teleportation property. That experiment gave him an emergency way to convert a projectile's destination into his own repositioning point. He kept the trick hidden because an unrevealed mobility option was more valuable than a public demonstration. Qin Fan's rare Molten Demon Ring became more valuable in the new trial because Purgatory Scorched Earth produced far more simultaneous fire ticks than sticky gel firebomb alone. Every critical tick returning mana meant large monster groups could help fund the spell currently burning them. The system rewarded Qin Fan for density instead of punishing him with unsustainable mana costs. That reversed the normal mage problem, where larger enemy groups required proportionally more resources to handle. Xiao Yuan began understanding why Qin Fan had prioritized equipment interactions during the Lord-class boss fight, instead of simply buying the highest stat items. Greedy fire did not look overwhelming on a description page, but repeated critical damage transformed the percentage refund into continuous recovery. The more persistent skills Qin Fan stacked, the more valuable that small percentage became. His build was evolving through multiplication between mechanics rather than one enormous standalone ability. The pair continued racing toward the suspicious first-place score. Their burning route crossed enough monster groups that ranking points arrived almost continuously. Xiao Yuan's natural combat instincts made the high-speed carrying arrangement much safer than Qin Fan expected. She adjusted direction before obstacles appeared fully in his view. Qin Fan focused on keeping the moving fire field active and watching his mana recovery. The ring repeatedly converted critical burn damage into fresh mana. Whenever the pool became comfortably full, he layered additional fire instead of conserving it. That decision transformed the path behind Xiao Yuan into overlapping zones rather than one narrow trail. Layering movement skill Firepath created a second source of continuous damage beneath the broader Purgatory Scorched Earth field. Targets inside both effects lost health faster, while generating more opportunities for critical hits and mana recovery. The older skill had originally been designed for retreat, yet Qin Fan now used it offensively, because Xiao Yuan supplied the movement. That reversal illustrated how Truth Furnace did not need to replace every old skill immediately to make it useful. Even unfused abilities could become stronger through the ecosystem surrounding them. Xiao Yuan saw monsters disappearing behind them before she could identify their exact types. Her sword remained ready for elites, but ordinary packs no longer justified stopping. Their combined method treated weak encounters as terrain rather than individual fights. Monsters entering from the sides could still encounter residual flames after the pair had already passed. The scorch increase confirmed that the lingering area was continuing to earn kills. Their method required almost no time spent collecting individual targets. It also reduced the value of enemy numbers because a larger group simply placed more bodies inside the same fire zone. Xiao Yuan compared the efficiency with fighting monsters one at a time, using her holy sword. She could defeat strong enemies quickly, but she could not physically swing at an entire forest simultaneously. Qin Fan's fused area skill solved that problem by turning terrain into the weapon. The combination still depended on her speed. Qin Fan kept his Truth Furnace secret, even from Xiao Yuan, because the talent's rule-level flexibility would attract attention beyond normal school competition. Explaining every fusion would reveal that almost any unusual material might become a future magical effect. He preferred letting observers assume hidden class mechanics, mutated skills, or rare equipment interactions. Those false explanations were incomplete but safer than giving rivals a recipe for understanding his real growth engine. Xiao Yuan disliked being excluded but accepted that everyone kept some combat secrets during competitive trials. She focused on the information she could verify directly through the team interface. Purgatory Scorched Earth healed her, accelerated her, and never harmed her, despite turning surrounding terrain into a furnace. That was enough evidence to trust the tactic without learning its origin. Without Xiao Yuan, Qin Fan's poor agility would drag the mobile zone across the realm far more slowly. Without Qin Fan, Xiao Yuan would remain an elite single-target fighter instead of a moving battlefield hazard. Neither liked admitting how cleanly their abilities covered the other's weakness. The suspicious score ahead remained the stronger motivation. Su Wanning's name kept holding the top position despite their accelerated farming. That meant the unknown entrant was still earning points somewhere else in the realm. Qin Fan stopped treating the situation like ordinary tournament competition. Someone using his dead mother's identity inside Xiao Tianing's event was sending a message. The unknown leader's score forced Xiao Yuan to choose speed over pride because normal monster hunting would never close the gap quickly enough. Qin Fan's plan let them earn points while traveling toward the same destination, instead of sacrificing one objective for the other. Every section of forest they crossed became a delayed scoring zone after they left. Monsters moving into the residual fire could die without either competitor turning back. That persistence made their route more efficient, with time rather than less. Qin Fan monitored the floating trial scoreboard whenever it appeared, comparing their acceleration against the mysterious Su Waning account. The name remained ahead long enough to confirm the entrant was still active rather than benefited from one lucky opening kill. Whoever carried that identity possessed real power or a highly efficient strategy. He wanted the person found before the trial ended. Xiao Yuan did not question that priority once she saw how seriously he reacted. Her usual embarrassment faded whenever the floating trial scoreboard returned to view. The two kept moving toward regions with stronger monsters because higher value targets would both raise points and narrow the search. Dense trees opened into rougher terrain where heavier footprints marked recent monster movement. Xiao Yuan spotted signs that ordinary goblins were avoiding the route ahead. Qin Fan interpreted the empty space as either danger or free experience. A low roar confirmed the second possibility immediately. The personal connection also changed Qin Fan's risk tolerance. He had joked through beginner dungeon goblin forest, school politics, and even Xiao Tianning's bizarre family revelations. Su Waning's name removed that protective humor because his mother belonged to the few memories he would not treat casually. Xiao Yuan noticed his hands shaking slightly when the floating trial scoreboard first appeared. Her decision to carry him came partly from tactics and partly from understanding that he genuinely needed to reach the unknown entrant. She stopped arguing about public embarrassment once the goal became more than winning a ring. That quiet shift marked the first time their partnership moved beyond repeated jokes and transactional cooperation. Qin Fan's joking returned, only after Xiao Yuan had already committed to the chase, suggesting the humor was something he used to keep moving under pressure. Three enormous elite level 5 forest trolls moved between the trees. Each stood several meters tall, with swollen dark growths, dense muscle, and heavy bone clubs. Their levels were well above the ordinary goblins that had been disappearing inside Purgatory Scorched Earth. Xiao Yuan recommended avoiding them and preserving speed toward the unknown leader. The suggestion was tactically reasonable. Qin Fan saw 3 high-value score packages, standing close enough to trap inside one area. His previous fight against a forest level 5 forest troll had also taught him how badly sustained fire punished slow, durable targets. He asked Xiao Yuan to circle rather than charge straight through. From the VIP box, Xiao Tianning experienced the same change when he recognized Su Waning's name. The chairman had spent decades preserving memories of her, making unauthorized use of the identity impossible for him to ignore. He ordered Moonring staff to trace registration data while the competition continued. The investigation had to happen outside because trial participants could not simply pause the realm for a personal dispute. Colonel Fong continued, watching Qin Fan's combat decisions rather than the family drama. To him, the moving fire field showed battlefield control on a scale far beyond Qin Fan's official D rank. The governor saw a recruitment spectacle becoming something stranger than Moon Ring's planned rookie showcase. None of them yet knew who had entered under the dead woman's name. The goal was to draw a complete ring of overlapping fire around the elites. Once enclosed, the level 5 forest trolls would have to cross the burning field, regardless of which direction they moved. Purgatory Scorched Earth would slow them while movement skill. Fire Path added another source of damage. The rare Molten Demon Ring could refund mana whenever critical ticks landed. Qin Fan therefore expected the long fight to become cheaper the longer the level 5 forest trolls remained trapped. Xiao Yuan warned that elite trolls could survive long enough to land dangerous counterattacks. Qin Fan accepted the risk because he was not asking her to stand still and trade blows. Her boosted agility was the defense. Xiao Yuan's boosted agility made even small terrain mistakes dangerous for Qin Fan because every root and rock arrived at extreme speed. He had to trust her footwork while concentrating on mana, area coverage, and the direction of their pursuit. The physical awkwardness of riding behind armored movement became another price of using her as the carrier. Despite constant complaints, Qin Fan never asked her to slow enough to lose the scoring advantage. Xiao Yuan likewise stopped threatening to drop him once the strategy proved effective. Their arguments continued because that had become their natural communication style. Underneath the noise, both students were executing the plan with increasing coordination. The forest behind them became a visible record of that cooperation. The plan relied on speed, distance, and terrain, rather than matching troll strength directly. Xiao Yuan tightened her grip and told Qin Fan to hold on. She accelerated toward the 3 elites before he could add another joke. The nearest troll lifted its club as the silver-armored Paladin entered range. Qin Fan kept the fire field centered around them and watched the ground ignite beneath the monster's feet. Xiao Yuan curved away before the club could complete its downward swing. The first section of the burning circle remained behind. A second troll turned toward the noise and stepped directly onto the active flame. Purgatory Scorched Earth damaged enemies as soon as they entered the zone, instead of requiring Qin Fan to face or target them directly. That rule meant ambush monsters hiding could expose themselves simply by touching the moving field. Xiao Yuan could keep her attention forward instead of checking every side path for weak threats. Qin Fan gained score from enemies he sometimes never saw clearly. The technique, therefore, provided a form of passive protection alongside damage and healing. It did not make them invincible against stronger elites capable of surviving the burn. The approaching troll territory would test exactly that limitation. Large durable monsters could remain dangerous, long enough to counterattack despite continuous fire. Qin Fan layered movement skill. Fire path across the same route, increasing the punishment without slow to Xiao Yuan. Their movement began tracing the ring he had requested. The trolls tried following, but Purgatory Scorched Earth reduced their ability to match the Paladin's boosted pace. Each attempted pursuit carried them through more burning ground. Qin Fan's mana bar dipped when the layered spells demanded another burst of power. Critical damage from previously ignited monsters soon pushed mana back upward. The engine he had built from separate rewards was functioning exactly as intended. Truth Furnace created the modified skills. The three elite trolls carried bone clubs heavy enough to punish any mistake in Xiao Yuan's movement. Their bodies were built for endurance, making them better tests of sustained damage than the ordinary goblins erased along the route. Xiao Yuan's first instinct was to bypass them, because the floating trial scoreboard target remained more important. Qin Fan calculated that the clustered elites offered too many points to abandon without trying. A circular route would let them continue moving, while controlling where the trolls chased. The idea reused knowledge from his earlier forest troll fight without repeating the same direct situation. This time, Qin Fan had more mana, stronger fire, a recovery ring, and an S-rank carrier. The balance of risk had changed completely. The rare Sleeping Belt and rare Molten Demon Ring supplied control and mana interactions. Xiao Yuan supplied the speed that let an area spell become a map-clearing route. The original D-rank label described none of the system Qin Fan was actually using now. Every useful item had become either a component, a synergy piece, or a future fusion possibility. The three elite trolls were not merely enemies. They were another live test of how many mechanics Qin Fan could stack before the next evolution. Xiao Yuan completed most of the circle, while Qin Fan watched the burning boundary close behind them. The trolls remained inside the ring, forced to choose between standing in layered fire or crossing even more of it. Qin Fan asked for a wide loop rather than a tight circle, so the trolls could not intercept Xiao Yuan by cutting across the center. The outer path also spread more burning ground. Increasing the distance each monster needed to cross to escape. Xiao Yuan adjusted immediately once the tactical reasoning made sense. Her Holy Paladin class gave her enough durability to survive one mistake, but neither wanted to test that margin unnecessarily. Qin Fan maintained Purgatory Scorched Earth while preparing movement skill Fire Path for the overlapping section. The first troll entered the edge of the zone and slowed as the field took effect. Its club missed because Xiao Yuan changed direction before the monster completed the swing. The missed attack confirmed speed would remain their primary defense. Their health began falling under repeated damage ticks. Qin Fan continued tracking the distant, floating trial scoreboard between combat notifications. Su Wanning's name still waited above them, turning the trial into something much more personal than a prize race. The epic sage's sigh remained worth fighting for. But the mysterious entrant had become the immediate objective. Qin Fans had started the previous morning as a broke officially weak D-rank mage, whose beginner fireball barely justified its mana cost. One god-tier talent had already transformed trash materials, common skills, lord-class boss drops, and clever equipment interactions into a completely different combat path. Truth Furnace had no sign of a fixed final evolution, only new possibilities whenever Qin Fan found another compatible item or skill. With elite trolls burning inside his newest battlefield experiment, and his mother's name leading the floating trial scoreboard, Qin Fan kept pushing forward, instead of accepting the limits of D-rank. The second troll stepped into the earlier flame. While pursuing the pair from another angle, Qin Fan's layered movement skill, Fire Path, turned that section into a more concentrated damage corridor. Critical numbers began appearing among the repeated ticks. Greedy Fire answered by returning mana before the active skills could drain him completely. That feedback meant the elite fight was already helping sustain itself. Xiao Yuan kept extending the circle instead of stopping for sword attacks. Every second of movement placed more hazardous ground between the trolls and the nearest safe exit. The battlefield slowly became the trap Qin Fan had imagined. The trolls tried choosing different directions, but Purgatory Scorched Earth followed Qin Fan, while the earlier route remained dangerous behind him. Moving inward shortened their path, but brought them closer together inside overlapping fire. Moving outward required crossing the burning ring. Xiao Yuan had already drawn. Standing still surrendered health continuously. For once, Qin Fan did not need a sleep trigger to control enemy choices. Terrain pressure performed that function by making every available route costly. The experiment proved his later fusions were becoming less dependent on one specific equipment trick. His combat style was gaining multiple independent ways to restrict stronger enemies. Qin Fan still carried the rare sleeping belt, giving persistent fire another chance to create brief control if the level difference allowed it. He did not rely on the effect, because elite resistance could make the timing unpredictable. The rare Molten Demon Ring was more dependable, since critical hits required no sleep, when ordinary critical chances occurred naturally. That distinction mattered during a moving fight, where planning around a random stun could create unnecessary risk. Xiao Yuan handled the monsters, as though no sleep would ever happen. Any control proc would become a bonus, rather than the foundation of survival. Qin Fan's tactics were already more mature than the Lord-class boss plan he had used only one day earlier. Each new encounter forced him to remove assumptions yains that no longer needed to stay. The epic sage's sigh still waited as the official first-place prize, promising instant casting if Qin Fan could reach the top before the trial ended. Instant Purgatory Scorched Earth, Sticky Gel Firebomb, Explosive Shield, or future fusions would remove several dangerous preparation windows. That reward alone justified aggressive scoring, even without the Su waning mystery. Now the same pursuit served two goals at once. Qin Fan needed points to win the ring in movement, to locate the person, using his mother's name. Xiao Yuan had her own reason to follow, because Moonring's registration system had been exploited inside her family's event. The three trolls therefore became both obstacles and potential shortcuts through the ranking. Qin Fan and Xiao Yuan closed the burning ring around three elite trolls, continuing their pursuit of the stranger using Su Wanning's name.